Hey guys, Charles Österlund here. Just doing a little intro about a conversation that Audrey and myself just had yesterday. And while doing this recording, we sort of started it in the middle of a conversation. So I want to make this little intro just so you guys have an idea about what is to come in the video or the audio you're about to listen to. And Audrey, if you don't know her, she's an athlete, she's a businesswoman, and she's just an overall very dynamic individual that has been learning a lot about a lot of different things, focused around improvement in your life, improvement in your mental attitude, improvement in your health and your nutrition. So it was a very interesting conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it while you're listening to it or watching it. And that's about it, guys. So really sit back, relax, or do whatever you're doing while you're listening to this audio and enjoy. Have a good one. Well, first I'll just tell you a little bit about the idea. Basically, for myself, like in my own life, I've been sort of trying to figure out like what to do, right? Like I do my sports, I read, I work, and you sort of hit like a wall where in Cabarete, we are sort of limited to some things, right? Like we have all the sports in the world, but from a business standpoint, which is something I like selling, I like buying, I like doing all these things, you're sort of like limited. And then also the town I find from like visiting different parts of the island, Cabarete in reality is one of the best places. Like for just lifestyle in general. Like if you don't do any sports at all, I can see that it could get boring because there's not much. But if you're someone who's remotely interested in having a more active lifestyle, it's ideal. So I was trying to figure out a way to sort of do more, do less, but do more, you know?
Yeah.
And with that, I was like, okay, like I've been trying out the winging sports. I was like, let's just film random videos and rants to just put stuff up. Then I was like, okay, if we're going to make videos, let's try to mention maybe Cabarete, Dominican Republic, because I also don't like the idea of like people taking a stand and saying like, Cabarete is the best, everything else sucks. And I'm like, that's not really true. Like there's nice things in every town, right? Like Sosua has its good and its bad. Cabarete has its good and its bad. Santo Domingo as well. It's a concrete jungle, but you could also you could have one good day or 3 good days in Santo Domingo, you know? It's not impossible. So it's that. And then I realized with the sports, with living in Cabarete, living in Dominican Republic, there's a lot of interesting people that are not red carpet individuals, but it's hard to relate to those guys, you know, and sometimes they're just saying stuff because it sounds good or they're paid or whatever it is, you know, they're not really giving, they're not really sharing their true selves, you know, they're not sharing true information that's relatable to everyone. They're just trying to sell whatever the social norm is of the time, like the approved upon message of the day, you know. It's not really the truth. It's not saying like, hey, life is maybe hard, things are maybe not that easy, you know.
They copy a coach to look good, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're just like, it's just like, and then people get almost a little bit depressed because they see this lifestyle and they're like, why don't I feel like this all the time? Even though the guy that's saying, oh, I'm happy every day, he's maybe not happy every day. He maybe doesn't have the best day every day. And this is what he's selling. And then people believe that. So, and I've seen that a bunch of times. Like you meet someone and you see how they behave on social media or, I guess social media is the best way to say it. Like any platform that's online, and they say it's every day is the best day of their lives. And then next thing you know, they end their lives. And you're like, what just happened? Weren't you just saying that everything was the best? And then 7 months in or 3 years in, you pull the trigger, you know, like how does that doesn't make any sense to me. So then you see that everyone is fighting some battle.
And we all do, right? No matter who you are, everybody has had trauma before and is battling something, but is learning from the past. And that's the story we should talk about. It's like which trauma I had in my past and what helped me to grow. And I'm not perfect today. And my goal is not to become perfect, but I want to thrive as much as I can.
Exactly. And that's sort of what I've just been contemplating it in my head. And then I wrote a list down of a lot of names, all types of people, like from all places. You know it. You're in the water sports world. You meet all types of people. And it's not only with sports, because I was, for example, talking with Swami about the idea a little bit. And she's like, what's the point of it, Charles? And I was like, well, she liked it though. She liked first she just liked the fact of like recording stuff, and she's all stoked about that. But the other part was more like, what is the point? And I was like, it's just about, I think, having the conversations and seeing where it goes, because I find that a lot of people are not, they just have the common conversation. Hey, what's up? All good. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's very it's very on the surface. You're not peeling the onion at all. And that makes people feel like a little bit empty and repetitive, because everything's just always, no matter who they talk to, it's the same conversation. You write, hey, they write, hey, how are you? You write good. They write the same thing. And then you do whatever you need, or you do whatever it is, and then that's it, So then they don't have the person that they can talk to about some problem, or they don't, and then they don't see that, because everything they see on social media is positive.
Yeah.
Or some problem that they can't relate to, like some kids in Africa are dying because of some random thing. And they're like, that sucks, but they don't see it. They don't relate to it. So they don't really feel it. So it's just like empty information that just really serves them no value. So it's like, they don't know that maybe their best friend is struggling through something, but since they don't have that relationship to talk about it, they just like sort of battle it on their own. And then they have a hard time with that, because they don't have the resources or the community or the knowledge that other people also suffer and other people also struggle, no matter what level they're at.
Yeah, that's correct. Or maybe they don't want to open up because it's not cool to look sad or to spread negative things online, right? You all want to talk about how good you did, how great the surf was today, how great your kite session. You never want to talk about things which wasn't good. So it's like today we kind of like have to shut up, because it's like when you ask someone how you doing, and if someone tells you I'm not doing good, it's like so what's the next? Are you gonna tell him, well, okay, well, have a good day, hope you feel better, right? Exactly. Or you're like, okay, let's go for a coffee or have a beer, let me know what's going on in your life. How many people would like sit down with you and like have a coffee and it's like, Charles, let me know what's going on, how can I help you? Right? I've been there, I hear you, but it's just like, you're right. No, so I think it's great. So again, let me know how you want to do that, how you want to go through the questions, and how you want to.
Well, the questions were there just because you asked if there's any questions, and I was like, these are maybe sort of the topics, to like have it a bit more focused in a way, because that's one problem with me, is that I can go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
I can do 70 things at once. Like a conversation could go to 70 different topics. I will have fun. But someone else would be confused as all hell. Like, wait a minute, we were talking about this one thing and now we're somewhere completely different,
Yeah. So let's think a little organized, right? Yeah. What do we want? What's the goal? What's the purpose? Who do we want to reach? What's the message we want to say? Do you want to talk about? Well, obviously I saw your question, so I know what we want to talk about, but let's just make a plan how you want to do that.
So sort of how it's going right now, in a way, is that just sort of flowing it out and seeing where some things will go. Ideally, when you talk about like, who is this for? I think it's more for, this might not be the right answer, but it's like anyone that is curious in general, right? that's how I end up in a lot of places. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I started reading about X person or some concept. It's just like you go down a rabbit hole and then you stumble into things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even a lot of guys, there's this one guy, I told you about Perry Marshall, right?
Yeah.
Who is a sales and a marketer, primarily email and AdWords. But he has this other guy, which is called Richard Koch. And Richard Koch has written the book 80/20, a lot of books around 80/20, the STAR principle, unreasonable success. And he started like a talk, right? Like he talks with people. And I look at his videos and he has like 50 views, 75 views, you know?
Yeah.
And like the conversations they're having are very good conversations.
I'm
And
sure
it's
there
with
are.
other writers, it's with other people that have done crazy things, you know, like they built basically the telecommunication infrastructure of the United States. So it's like a guy who brought internet, brought telephones, and then that conversation has 50 views. And it's about the guy saying like his view on life, the things he had to struggle with and deal with, everything like that. And then you look at a Justin Bieber video and it has 50 million and it's a 3-minute song about nothing.
Right. But that show you how people get brainwashed and don't want to look out for new things and want to learn new things, right? And it's like, you know, Charles, it's like the more you discover about something, the more you read about one book, the more you realize that you don't know anything. And then it's like you say, you know, you want to know more and more and more. It's because you are a thriving person, and so I am. And people who are like us, and I hope that everyone would be like that, because sometimes I don't understand. I was talking with a friend the other day, and I'm like, I was asking why people don't want to learn, why people don't want to become smarter, why people don't want to become better, instead of like smoking weed and hanging out on the beach. And don't take me wrong, there's nothing with smoking weed, right, or hanging out at the beach, but it's the fact, it's just like, why you don't want to get better in your life? You know, it's like everyone should be like that, should reach for better, stronger, smarter. And it's not to become perfect, but it's to thrive and just to know more and more. And the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know anything. And it's like a vicious circle. So then you want to look just for more things. So I think it depends on people how they are, what's their goal in their life, and what make them happy. What makes me happy is learning new things and discover that I learn a lot. You know, it's like now this 4 months during COVID, I was like at home and I was not like watching Netflix like a lot of people. I was just reading a lot and watching video and doing webinar. And I was just like putting some work out there. And the more I would put work out there, the more I would realize that I don't know anything. And then I would do my research. Yeah. But again, it depends about people, what their goal. Do they want to learn something, or they just want to stay and chill and they're not interested?
And that's why even one of the it's like a concept that even the Richard Koch guy was talking about, which was, he's like, anyone that has done anything in their life, whether big or small, right? Because also everyone always compares themselves. They think that if they didn't start Amazon, that they haven't done anything, which is not a good gauge, because everyone has different capabilities and different interests. Some people are not interested in technology, so they might never create anything in technology. That doesn't mean that they're not a success or that they don't have the chance to be a success, because they could hypothetically develop a new toilet, right? And people don't think about it, but some guy had to think about that. Like, that's an invention, you know, like, and we just take it for granted. We just sit on it, pee on it, whatever. And we're like, no big deal. But there's something going on there. You know, someone had to think about that. And that's like where people sort of like, with what you're saying, like, why don't people want to thrive anymore? But it's because like we're pushing like these fake, people don't see the reality anymore. They just see like a script of a movie. Like, it's like a pre-made narrative, you know, it's not the true story. We only see the endings. We don't see the whole process of like, how did someone get there? And basically what this guy was saying, he's like, anyone that has ever done anything in a way sort of has this moment that something happens. Sometimes it's a negative experience. in their eye, like in the eyes of like the normal world, someone died, they got in an accident, whatever it is. But it's like this revelation, this one moment that sort of just like shifted it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they're not even aware that that thing happened, but it just happened, and then all of a sudden their life took a different pace or a different direction. And that's what I always wonder. And I think one of the questions that I wrote was like, how do people sort of stay motivated and energized, like to just keep pushing forward? You know, like sometimes I see people, they're like, oh, I'm 60, I'm done. I'm like, you still have 40 years.
Yeah. But to answer your question, and actually I want to go back first to the guy of Amazon and the guy who built the toilet. I mean, those guys, obviously, they built something, they created something. But what people don't see is how many times they tried a new product, they try a new business. I mean, if you Google the guy who started Amazon, and he's one of the richest guy in the world today, I mean, I don't think Amazon was his first project, right? And I'm sure he started some project before and he failed, but he learned from that. And he probably didn't start with a big project like Amazon. And so is the guy who started with the toilets, right? Who had the invention. It's like, I'm sure he invented other things before, which probably didn't work. And I'm pretty sure that it didn't work, but he kept going, right? He was kept going even though he was failing. So I think those people who are thriving and who have the motivation, what really pushed them is, you know, enjoying the process of discovering, of creating something. They don't see the outcome. They don't see the last thing. It's like, I'm going to become rich. I'm inventing something because I want to become rich, or because of that. It's just like they motivated, like the guy who invented the light bulb, you know, it's just like, it was years of research, and the research was his motivation. It was not the product, the final product. And you know that when you like, the journey is so much more interesting than the goal. It's like the guy who decided at 64 he has nothing to learn in life. He's probably gonna die soon because he has nothing, right? It's like, what's going on? It's like, I have nothing to learn in life anymore. Yeah. So he doesn't enjoy his life. And I think the full thing is that enjoying every moment, you know, having joy every day, no matter what you learn, no matter what you try, no matter what you fail, learning from that, and then having joy, enjoying the moment, enjoying the process, the journey, like they say, and not the goal of becoming rich because you started Amazon.
But that's also that's the thing, that in a way we're always, it's like a constant battle and a struggle, right? Because even though we might know that, we still sometimes get frustrated where we're like, we just want that thing, right? And we revert back to our old ways or to the ways of society. And that's like the battle. It's like a constant pulling between the two. But for sure, there is one thing that I think is a common theme now, which is like the flow states, whatever you want to call it. Like when you're in the moment, in the present, those are the times when things just feel right. Like you're working, you're progressing, you're doing something, and it's like it's just all going. Like there's no real tension in the mind or in the body. It's just like working. And how do you come up with that? How do you develop it? I think that's like the sort of the big question. And I don't think anything now, like the school's not teaching that, universities are not teaching that. So the only way that someone can start hearing about it or finding out more about it is like, you have to, like, that's the thing, is like, how do you get to that point? How do you get into the mode of like, I need to figure this out? Like, that's what like that's sort of one question there, is like, how I figured it out is like, let's say meeting people, all types of different, like, let's say quote unquote characters, right? You meet someone that has some different experience, and it opens your mind to like, wait a minute, people do that, or that's happening. Or, you know, like I saw that you're doing a different type of stretching that I never heard of before. I didn't look into it, but just today, it was the Eloa.
Eldoa.
Yeah. So I was like, what is this? You know, I don't even know what.
So Eldoa is Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. And actually, talking back to flow, I read that book a couple of years ago, and it's called The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. If you haven't read it, amazing book. So he analyzed athletes and flow. So it's called The Rise of Superman, Stephen Kotler. He analyzed flow in athletes. And he, for example, take that guy who was running 100 meters. And, you know, for many years, no one could break the records. And people were saying it's not biologically possible to break the records. It's like human being cannot run as fast. So people were stuck in a box, right? They're like, okay, that's it. This is the faster runner in the world, and no one's going to be able to break that until someone did it. And that was maybe a couple of years later. And then when that guy did it, then people will keep breaking records. So the reason I say that is like, once you put your mind in a box that it's not possible because of physiology, spiritually, mentally, whatever, it's not possible. When someone tells you and when you believe that, there's no way to break that line, right? And that's actually, he was talking about flow, how people would like train and get into that mindset and being able like to push the limit throughout, but also moving, you know, that box, moving this side, how you call on the
like
horse.
on the horses, the blinder.
Right. And once you open up, you know that you can break these limits. And you know, first it's possible to do it, and then you get into that mindset, into that flow motion, because it's a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So you really push yourself. And it's not only in sport, right? In music, you have amazing people like Mozart, Beethoven, you know, who like wrote when they were kids, like huge music thing. So it's also in anything that we do, in anything what we do today, flow is just so important. And the problem, I think, like today, flow is so oftentimes broken down because we have device. And so when we want to work, we cannot focus on what we're doing. When we want to learn a new instrument, at the same time, we go on Twitter and whatever, you know, we cannot just concentrate on one thing. And that's the key of flow. When you surf, you know, you've been in flow for time because you just so concentrate on your waves. And when it gets a little bit bigger that day, you even double concentrate. And that's when flow, that's when magic happens. But today, with so much things going on between social media and interaction, it's just like people get out of that flow zone, that flow motion. And that's what I think it's sad. So we need to learning about ourselves first and stay in that flow motion and really connect with ourselves when we do something.
Though with that being said of like connecting with yourself, what I do find is like in a way, is that I find we have moved into like, it's always on extremes, right? Like you have either people do nothing or they go really deep into it. And for some people that's like unattractive, you know, like because they're like, those guys that are really in tune with themselves, those are hippies, you know? And they put like, or gypsies or whatever it is, and they just put a title to it and they're like, I don't want to be like those guys. And you know, there's sometimes people that might be very spiritual or they might be whatever, but they're just a quote unquote normal guy. Like you don't see them putting on beads. You don't see them putting on some ornaments or whatever. They're just look like a normal, any other day guy, but they have that side to them. And I think that people, when you start talking about like getting in tune with yourself, the first thing that comes to mind is like some hippie stuff, you know, like, oh, well, we're going to start doing smoking and drinking some teas and mushrooms and whatever it might be. But it's like, that's not necessarily the case, you know, like some people might use those things or do those things, but that's because they found that it works out for them maybe, you know, in some way. But everyone has their different way of connecting with themselves. And that's the thing, is like everyone's just trying to create a product that works for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's like everything is sort of unique in a way. Like everyone operates differently. Everyone can, everyone performs differently. And it's like sort of a way to like, how do you embrace that? How do you develop that? You know, because there's no product for it.
Yeah. Well, it's so true what you say, but actually some business, some big companies being investing in that. You know, Google, for example, they have people working on emotional intelligence, and which means they doing some mindful meditation at works, and also they have a coach which train them about self-awareness. And once people are more aware and more tuned with themselves, they know what they're good at. So Google used that in a way to help the employee to work at what they're good at. You know the book, and you gave me that book, like Who Ate My Cheese, right?
Yeah.
And just like you have those four different people, and every one of those four react differently. But then let's take the strong points out of this person. Let's take the positive of each and use that to really push them at work or in their life. We all different. We all have positive things and negative things. But once you start embracing what you're good at, I think that's where you really can perform at your top, at work, in your life, and in everything. So the key is back to self-awareness. How well do you know yourself? How well nutrition work for you? How many hours of activity do you do in a week? I don't need the same calorie than someone who is laying on a sofa, and I'm not going to ask her or him to eat the same calorie than I do, because their life is completely different. So it's just how well do you know what works for you? Do you like CrossFit? Do you like yoga? There's no one better than the other. What works for you that will help you keeping sustainable and enjoying what you're doing, and then doing it for the not the rest of the life, but as long as you like it. So again, back to self-awareness. What works for you probably is not going to work for another person. And you shouldn't train a person. I'm a coach, and I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and I don't coach people the same way, because people have different goals and people are different. And this is something that you really have to put in the center, right? Everybody is different. Let's use your positive things, your strong character, and let's optimize your body and your mind according to who you are. And today people forget that, you know, when you see online 20 days booty shake or whatever, you know, and it's like a one fit everyone. No, it's not going to be one fit everyone, because people are different. And maybe one's going to want to have a smaller butt and the other want to have a bigger butt, right? So it's like everybody's different. So self-awareness is the most important.
And it's also, the other thing is though, is like, it's cutting out, it goes back to what you were saying. Well, first off, I almost think that we should, everything that we did before this, like talking, I honestly think is also very good, very like informational in a way. But I'll add one note, and then we can decide like if we should use what we already spoke of, or if we should start from scratch. But what you're saying about the distractions is like, we're so bombarded by like advertising, right? So people don't even know up from down anymore. No one knows what's the truth, what actually works. And people are selling easy solutions to very complicated problems. They're like, try this 3-day green juice shake and change your life.
Yeah.
Or lose 50 pounds. And it's like, it's not going to work, you know? Like, it's good to be testing out things, but people are just trying to come up with things to sell to people that actually don't yield lasting results. And those people that are putting those products out know that they don't get lasting results. And that's sort of that vicious cycle, is that in the end, when you teach someone something, they almost don't need you anymore. And I think that's like a hard thing, because people are always trying to find ways to bring them back and get constant purchasing and whatever it is. But it's like, once someone's on the journey of their life, let's say, you know, there's going to be a lot of like that, people are going to come into your life, they're going to leave your life, you're going to come into people's lives, and then you're going to leave their lives. Like, sort of this, some people will stay, some people might not stay. But it's like that, the fact that we're so distracted and bombarded by the commercial world, I think it really messes with people's heads, because of what you're saying is like, there's no real one size fits all solution, but everyone tries to make it sound like there is a one size fits all solution, which also messes with people's heads, because they try that 3-day green juice they don't get the results, and they're like, oh, this is bullshit. You know, and it's like, wait a minute, maybe that's not the best idea, you know, and maybe 50 years of abuse on your body is not going to get solved in 3 days by drinking 3 shakes.
Absolutely.
Because if it was that easy, like.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, life is not complicated. People make it complicated. You know, it's you were writing a question about how, I can't remember what you were asking me, or which way you were asking me, but how people really thrive, or how people are able to work at their best. I mean, for me, there are 4 pillars in life, right? It's like nutrition, sleep, move, whatever activity you put into the move, can be sport, can be fitness, can be anything, and breathing. And this is easy because this is something that we already do, but we have to keep it simple, you know? And like you say, because of all those advertising, people make it complicated and people get brainwashed. So I would say a coach is someone which will help you to stick to that, but to make it so easy that it's so fucking stupid that you cannot fail, right? Break it down and make it so easy, because it's easy. Everybody sleep, everybody eats, everybody move, and everybody breathe. But we forgot to do it the right way because we want to be fancy, we want to be cool, because there's a 20-day booty shake or a 3-day drink your green, and we want to have the green pill that makes it go super fast, you know, in 3 days, in 20 days. It's a fucking lifestyle. You know, it's not in 3 days that you drinking greens gonna change your life. Yeah. It's a lifestyle. So that's what people don't understand. We have to make it so easy that it's sustainable, that you enjoy. So back to the joy part, enjoy the process and make it so easy that you can do it. And like you're right, yeah, with the commercial, it gets complicated and it confuses people.
Yeah, and that's the thing though, is like what might have worked for one person might not work for you as well. So you almost have to become like a scientist, and you have to be doing experiments on yourself, seeing what works, what doesn't, you know? And some things are weird. Like one thing I do now is like I'm sleeping with a red light. You know, I sleep with the red light on, and it's like, what do they say? It helps with better sleep, relaxing, the mood, because it is true in a way. If you're using devices or you have very bright lights before you go to bed, it sort of doesn't set up the right ambiance. You know, you might be taking longer to fall into sleep, you know, just because like your body is like surprised of the change. So you went from fully awake to like, we need to go sleep now, you know, and it doesn't have that transitional period. So it's like getting rid of the devices, whatever it might be, 30 minutes or an hour before bed, and then adding this red light for the infrared, like what they're saying, that it helps out with relaxing, with healing, etc. Does it work or not? I don't know, but you have to test it out, right? And then you go from there. And in the end, it's like, do you feel better or not? And then you check one box or the other one, you know. And then if it doesn't work, throw that light bulb away and move on.
For sure. You know, Charles, I'm kind of like back to nature. When I look at my dogs, how they sleep, how they eat, they're animals, right? They have it in their genes. And it's just like, you were talking about sleep, you know, about the circadian clock, right? The sun coming up, the sun coming down. There's a reason, right? That we get tired when the sun comes down at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's because you have your clock inside in your body, which tells you it's time to sleep. When the sun comes out, and farmer used to do this before, when sun comes out, that's when you get awake. Then what happened? Light bulb, electricity. So people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and stay awake till 1 o'clock at night and party because in the discotheque and those lights. So then what happened? Your circadian time is like fucked up because you have all those lights, plus you have your device, your iPhone, whatever, before going to bed. So your body is not aligned with nature. And that's just back to nature, right? We're supposed to go to bed when the sun comes down and wake up when the sun comes up. So once you follow that, again, it's easy. You'll start sleeping better. And then, yes, you can try with things. You want to try with the red light? Fine. See what works for you. Try different things. See what works for you. Might work for you, but not for me. But back to basic, right? We have a sun. It comes up, it comes down. And as long as we follow that, I think, and that's the way of thinking, right? I follow the sun. I wake up with the sun at 6 o'clock. I go to bed with the sun. Well, maybe not with the sun, but I try to be in bed at least at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
So then the thing comes up though, is like, imagine you live in Norway and it's winter time and it's dark 18, 20 hours a day. How can you thrive in that environment? How do you operate? Or you just sleep and then you wait it out till summer?
That's why I live in Cabarete. I don't know. Then I would maybe try different things, red light. But I don't know. There's a reason I live here. So
it's an interesting thing, and that's why like the environment definitely plays a big role on your performance.
For sure. Yeah.
Here we're very blessed in a way to have the conditions we have on a daily basis pretty much and all year round. But with that being said, then I'm wondering, we start from scratch, or we use this and we build on it, or what would you think? I'm open.
Do you want to edit the video? I mean, we already have a couple things we've been talking about. When I look at your questions here, you can use some of that. It's up to you.
No, I like to free roll it all, like very raw and unedited, because this is also the thing that I find that's a dilemma, is that when you start editing everything, people don't see the reality.
Yeah.
They see this perfect picture.
Yeah.
Oh, look, this guy's able to talk for 3 hours and something. And you're like, actually, that wasn't how it went down, And it builds up these false illusions, like these false expectations and realities that mess with people. And that's the whole thing that I've realized, is like, no matter if someone is an all-time athlete or business person or someone that's just working in a company, none of them have ever been perfect, let alone are perfect. And you almost see that the guys that are all the way at the quote-unquote top are the ones that are prone to even more failures and they're more like, let's say, lost, because they're like just pushing their limits all the time, right? And when you're pushing yourself, or you're doing anything that's not, that you don't know, there's a chance of failure. And that's all right, because you just, you try and you don't make it, or you create a new product and it doesn't sell, or whatever it might be. And it's like, all right, well, what's next? Where do we go from here? So that's why, like, I do like the unedited part. One thing that I find that we might have missed was like who Audrey actually is.
Yeah.
So I don't think we introduced ourselves in the beginning, but maybe what we can do is that we can talk about that at the end. We could just sort of just mention like, hey, we're going to be chatting, and then sort of play everything that has already been talked about, because it is the first and there needs to be some sort of structure behind it. But I find that just having conversations is somewhat important, because that's the first step. And it's even like, let's say if I told you about an idea, let's say this red light idea, and then you're like, no, we need to sleep in the dark and like the animals and all this. And that's also the good thing, is like when people talk about their ideas or things that they're doing, and then someone's like, wait a minute, I'm doing this instead. There's sometimes those people that you meet that have a very strong opinion where they say, I'm right and you're wrong. And then there's some people that are like, oh, that's interesting that you've done that. I've never heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I've met the guy, I won't say his name in this, but I met a guy that was like, he's not drinking any water, right? He just drinks like fruit juices or vegetable juices. And it's like, when he said that to me, I'm like, what do you mean you don't drink water? That's interesting. And then he's like, yeah, I don't drink water because I get my water from watermelon or from coconuts or from carrot juice or anything like that. And I just don't drink regular water because regular water doesn't give me any more minerals or any properties that are really beneficial. So I'd rather have this water that's on steroids, let's say, flowing through my body at all times.
Yeah.
And then that was sort of the start of, let's say, my journey in another direction in nutrition, because I'm like, wow, this is something that's interesting. And it almost makes sense. Why would you drink something that's plain? Why would you eat something that doesn't give you anything? You know, this is all fuel.
Yeah.
In your car, you put in gasoline because the engine works with that. You don't start putting in things that don't work with that, because then the engine's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know? So it's the same with our body. We're putting in things that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how are you supposed to be putting things that shouldn't be there and then try to be performing like if those things should be there? You know, it's like a dilemma. So you're just like, that's why even with nutrition, I find that I've been trying to strike my own balance with like, what is the right diet, you know, like, because there is for sure, chocolate tastes good, you know, Nutella's the bomb with pancakes, but is that the ideal diet, and is that sustainable? But then again, the other extreme is, should we only be eating fruits and vegetables raw all day, every day? Or should we be eating meat, or should we not be eating meat? You know, there's all these different, sides of nutrition.
I think you're right with what you said, but there's no right or wrong. I would say it depends. That guy who drinks juice, if it works for him, fine. Someone who wants to lose 20 pounds, I wouldn't suggest that they just drink juice, because first of all, the liquid is going to have way too much calorie, which water has 0 calorie, and water still has a great pH, which is different than the juice, and has minerals, which you need. So I would say it depends. Pancake and Nutella, if I'm working at the gym and then I want to rebuild, I want to get my carbohydrates and I want to have my fat, I am going to add peanut butter and banana on the top of it. But I'm not trying to lose weight, you know, so it depends what nutrition is the best. I would say there's no best nutrition. It's what works for you and what's your need are. Do you want to gain weight? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to be more performance? Do you want whatever it works for you? Everybody's different. And then your metabolism is maybe faster than someone else. So it depends, you know, but I say always there's no good food and bad food. For me, there's no bad food. It all depends what your needs are. And that's, everybody's different.
And what if someone was like, let's say 400 pounds, and he's like, hey, this diet of mine of fried chicken and pancakes and beers and vodka and Coca-Cola, this works out for me. Like, I'm happy. Is that okay? Or is that like, well, all right, I guess if it's okay for you, but it's not gonna last that long, you know, like what is
if the guy is not ready for change, you know it's not going to happen. So if the guy is happy with eating that way and is happy with his 400 pounds, first there's like a change in his mindset. If you want to lose 400 pounds, and then we have to make him understand that there's going to need some change involved. But you cannot take the guy everything out of the table. You cannot give that guy who was eating fried chicken and Coca-Cola and beer and give him like a green salad with carrot juice. You know, he's going to be depressed after day 3. So it's just like, you know how it is. You need to give something and take something. It's about the balance. And it depends what he wants. Does he want to lose 400 pounds or he's happy? If he's happy, fair enough. You know, leave the guy alone. Let him drink beer.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know if he wants to lose 400 pounds though. Then he'll just disappear. But
well, believe it or not, there are some people who actually, I mean, they're huge. They're like.
No, I know, but I'm saying if he went from 400 pounds and lost 400 pounds, he's at 0 pounds. So he just.
400. Yeah, I thought you were saying he wants to lose 400 pounds. Yeah. Whatever the amount of pounds he wants to lose.
No, so then Audrey, you know, like I think. What would be interesting, because I know some things about you, but I don't know everything about you, and I don't think I'll know everything about anyone ever. But what do you think is the most important thing behind yourself? You know, like how did your life sort of progress? Because I met you when I was maybe, I don't know, 10 years old or 11 years old, causing trouble on the kite beach.
Yeah.
But what was Audrey before that? Or like, how does that sort of go? You know, it's like, I'll give you an example of my life is that people met me here in Cabarete and they're like, they think I was born here, but I wasn't born here. You know, I was born in Canada and I lived in Florida, but then those things might have shaped me a little bit. But in reality, what shaped me, I would say, is like from 10 years old on is when I really started like becoming who I am maybe today. You know, so for yourself, how do you see that? Where does your journey sort of really start, you know?
Well, I would say my journey started with water sports. So I was born in France, in Strasbourg, believe it or not, you know, which is, there's no ocean there. It's close to Germany. And I started windsurfing when I was 12 in south of France because my parents had a house there. So when I started windsurfing, I loved it. You know, I find being in the water in the ocean was like freedom. So this, I sticked with that. Every summer I would go windsurfing, every winter. Then I went to university and studied sports and management in France. And then I'm like, that's it, I'm out of here. I can't do that anymore in Strasbourg, which is a great city, don't take me wrong, but I had to be close to the ocean. So I moved to La Réunion, which is a French island in the Indian Ocean, and I kept study there. I did a master of sports and training. And then it brought me to Cabarete just for a summer job. But what really started was the water sport. You know, I always find freedom in the ocean. And then, you know, I started competing in kiteboarding, and I had the kiteboarding school. And that's when I started pushing myself. I was competing on the World Cup. I remember I was 29. So I was pretty old considering most of the girls today competing with 15 and 16. So I'm like, okay, how can I be as good as they are with 10 or 15 years being older? So I was working out. I remember at the time we were doing hand pass. So I was preparing a program to be able to have flexibility in my shoulder, to have strength, not to dislocate my shoulder. Yeah. So I was creating like an off-water program. And I was also interested with nutrition. So that was the first thing where I really wanted to push myself. So pushing myself, like working at peak performance was something I discovered here in Cabarete when I was like competing in kiteboarding. And then of course, I got injured. I blew up my knee. I had like a couple of stitches in my face from foiling. So yeah, but every time when I got injured, I learned from my lessons. And then I'm like, okay, time to pace down. And actually, I have to say, blowing up my knee, I tore my ACL in 2010, was the first thing when I started to meditate and to breathe. And when I'm talking about breathe, we all do breathe, but I'm talking about breathing exercises because I had to slow down. And people would say, oh, you're going to get fat, you're going to start eating junk food. I'm like, no. Now I started really at that time setting my mind and working on my mind, on my mindset. So I would say getting injured was like one of the best things which happened to me. And remember at the beginning, you were talking about when people have a life change is sometimes when something happened, when shit happened, when they lose someone, when something go wrong. So for me, getting injured, blowing up my knee, I had it surgery. I was 6 months out of the water. So that's really what helped me to change the way I was looking at sports. Now I have to train my mind, my breathing, and also start a lot with visualization. Because I'm like, once I want to go back on the water, I want to be back to the same level. And then 6 months later, I want to keep competing. So I would meditate, breathe, close my eyes, practice my tricks in my head, having a timer. At the time, it was different. The way people were competing, we had like 8 minutes to compete. And I remember like, okay, trick 1, trick 2, trick. I had everything set up in my mind, and I was practicing in my mind every day. And then I kept competing after it was good. I still travel. I remember going to Brazil, and there was that kite loop contest. And I blew up my knee on a kite loop, right? Remember the time it was short line, back loop, kite loop. The kite is going underneath knee. I landed super hard and blew up my knee. And here I'm in Brazil on the World Cup, and there's a kite look contest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do that. And I remember I made second in the contest, and I have like a big trophy, which I'm super proud of it, because I blew up my knee on a kite loop 6 months before, and here I am in Brazil competing, and I'm on the podium for a kite loop contest. Yeah. And it was blowing like 35 knots. But you know, the reason I say that is like, yeah, I had that injury and I learned something new, and I learned not only to train my body, but training my mind via visualization and breathing and meditation. And that's open door. You know, once I was doing that, I use it today to train people, and I see a huge difference. And I went on this journey on mindset coaching, because once you set up your mind with something, it makes a huge difference. So that guy who wants to lose weight, we were talking earlier, who has X amount of pounds to lose, maybe not 400, but if he's not ready for it, if he's not ready for change, it's not going to happen. But there's a way to train his mind to get him ready. And once he's ready here, then things going to start happening. And it's the same for nutrition, for smoking, for lifestyle change, for anything. It's changing the way you see, changing the way you create new habits, and how this can provide you with joy. So we're back to the same word that I keep using, right? Joy, daily mindset, and creating those healthy habits. But yeah, and then I still competed for a couple of years, and then in Cabarete, we sold the kiteboarding school, and then you know the rest. You know, I'm coaching here, fitness, nutrition, mindset. I'm coaching online, and I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast because I can see a huge difference on how I can help people about living a better life. Not just in the sport, catching more waves or lifting more weight at the gym or eating healthier. Once you set that mindset for anything or for your business, you can open big doors because you see results.
So 2 things that that you said that were sort of interesting. One of them, that's just one question, is that, so when did you start? Because a lot of people know you from maybe the personal training side, the coaching side, the nutritional side, but you're also like a business person. So when did you start that kite school? How did that start?
That started in 2000.
And 2000.
Yeah. I arrived in Cabarete in 99, teaching windsurfing at Vela. Yeah. And then I was flying a kite, perhaps end of 99. And I taught someone who got hooked in kiting, and is like, that's it, I want to have my own kite school. Yeah. And so he helped us investing in the land and building the kite school. And then anyway, story short, then we owned the kite school because we were paying him back. Yeah. And so we had the kite school from 2000 to 2016 in Cabarete on Kite Beach. And then we were able to sell it in 2016. And and then since that, I'm just working remotely, online and anywhere.
And how do you, like, from that business side of it, like, how did that flow naturally into your life? Or was that like a forced decision where you're like, I need to start making money and this, or like, how did you sort of come up with that? Because also this is now pretty much 20 years ago. So it's like a good amount of time, you know, this is not yesterday. So how did that sort of come about, and how do you see that progression from, how do you see yourself evolving from Audrey 2000 to Audrey 2020?
Well, actually, to be honest, it was just being at the good place at the good moment, because kiting was just starting in Cabarete. I was just there. I was like 20, and so I was just learning to kite. I already windsurfed, obviously, before. And I was just learning myself to kite. No one was kiting. Cabarete was different. There were not like today 25 kite school or people teaching, and we were 2 or 3 learning. You know, there was Eric Ashton and there were a couple of other guys. We were just learning by ourselves, and it was just an opportunity. And then I taught that guy, and that's how things happen. I never saw it as a business. I always saw it as fun. It was a passion. And I keep saying the 16 years I had running the kiteboarding school, I had so much fun, and I never saw it as a job. It was fun, and it was learning from it. I had fun every day. And people were like, are you not getting bored? I'm like, hell no, I'm kiting every day. You know, as long as I can kite and can be in the water, I'm happy. So, but also, you know, I was training for something. So it's not like I started running the kite school. I was the first kite instructor. And then there were 2, there were 3, there were 4, there were 5. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, I have to manage. Someone needs to like supervise everything. Yeah. So I kind of like step back of teaching all those people, the coach were teaching. And I was just supervising everything. And once people started their lesson, I would myself go in the water and kite and supervise everything. But at the same time, I was training myself because I was competing. So that happened. I was competing, I think, until 2014 or 15. No, maybe actually 2012. And then I stopped competing, and that's when I went into wave riding. Yeah. You know, I stopped doing freestyle, I wave ride, and yeah, it was fun. So I didn't see it as a business, but I learned. Now looking back, I actually learned a lot.
And do you think, because you said one realization was 2010 with your accident, but do you think that if you would have never taught that one person and then never decided to start a kite school, where would Audrey be today then? Like what would be the situation? Because you came here on a summer job, you said, for 4 months, and then you stayed, or you went back and then you came back? Or you just
stayed. I didn't go back to France. I stayed, and I went to Maui for the winter, just as a winter job. And then I came back to Cabarete after 2 months. So yeah, Cabarete always had something for me. I love the place, I love the people, I love the energy. So, and I had a good connection with everything, you know, I felt home. But to be honest, now you're like talking like 20 years ago. I'm like, for me, it's not even 20 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just like, for me, it was always fun. And like I say, the fun factor is so important for me, because as long as you keep it fun, you keep it interesting. And that's why for 16 years, I had a blast running the kite school. Until the end, at the end, I was like, kind of like getting bored, because I was like out of the limits. Like, I want to do more. I want to learn more. I want to do something. So maybe the last year, when I was like, I think we should sell the kite school because it's doing really well. We brought it to the top. People would come and visit us every year. We had a lot of customers. We were doing great. And you know the time, you know, the restaurant was doing great. The kite school was doing great. It was kind of like at the top. And I'm like, it's time to sell. I think we have to get rid of it. And so we can move on. So then I had more the business perspective. And I'm like, we brought that business to the top. I don't see how, and in the place I am now, I don't see how we could make it better, bigger, with having fun. Yeah. And I'm like, we need to sell it. And then we had a great opportunity. You know, we had some buyer, and it went great. And yeah, so I'm really blessed for what happened.
No, because it's all interesting, you know, and it also shows, because, you know, like now we're talking in a way of like, there's some people that might like listen to this and they don't know who Audrey is. They don't know what Cabarete is, right?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see how things sort of flow into each other. And that's why I'm wondering, I'm like, if you would have visited Cabarete and then just left after those 4 months, you know, how would your life be different? It might even be hard to picture, because it could have gone any way. You know, you'd have maybe never started competing. Then you would have never blown out your leg. And then maybe you're like, I don't know what else interested you when you're younger. Maybe you're a dentist, you know, or maybe you become a physical therapist or something, you know, and you don't become who you are today.
I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a brain surgeon. Yeah, but you never know. And you know what, Charles, I never look back. It's actually funny because I never looked at like, oh, what I would have done if. I don't think about that. I'm just like, oh, what can I do now? I'm always kind of like a person who looks into the future and who enjoy the moment now and really trying to find something positive in the day. But I don't look back about what I could have done differently. Actually, I do when I get injured. You know, I have like a couple of stitches in my face from previous accident. And I'm like, what happened? Why it was so stupid? What did I do? Because accidents are always stupid. But then I'm like, okay, don't think about that. It happened. Let's try not to do the same mistake anymore because it was a mistake. But then I move forward. It's just like, otherwise your brain always stays in the past. What if? I don't live in the past. It's past.
No, that's it's a good point, and it's actually, you know, I think I might ask other people. Hopefully, they don't watch these videos, so they don't know what I'm going to ask. But it's like, that's almost a question that a lot of people that are performing in their lives, they don't think about the past. But a lot of people that are not progressing in their lives, they're always thinking about the past. You know, they're always thinking, I should have bought this stock when it was low. I should have, you know, like they're always just living like hindsight 2020. You know, you're going to know, of course, you know now what you didn't know then because it happened, right? So you know you should have done this or you should have done that. But c'est la vie, you know, you got to move on. And a lot of people that I find that are progressing in their lives, they're able to retell stories that happened pretty well, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask them a question of like, what if you would have done this or what if that, they don't have an answer because it's like irrelevant to them. You know, they never even thought like who cares? I don't know. Like I'm here now. So
yeah.
Anything could have happened, you know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that and how you answer that because you're just like, it's almost irrelevant. It's like a dumb question, you know, because they're like, who cares? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's write a fiction novel if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I do though, you know, wherein let's say I'm practicing something in the water and I fail, I like to call it a feedback loop. I'm trying to analyze what I did wrong, and I use video sometimes. Let's say I skateboard. The other day I posted a video skateboarding of me wiping out. I didn't plan to wipe out, but I did wipe out. And was going through the video. I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, my hips were placed that way. My body was placed that way. So I do actually look back in the past, but that's a way to make it better. Where was the mistake? How can I do it better, right? So that's my only time when I look in the past, but just to learn from my mistake and try to make it better.
No, that's there's nothing wrong with like reflecting on past experiences because this is also how you're going to learn. But I think what you do get rid of is the what if. Yeah. Like the what if sort of just like flies out the window. Like, sure, you're like thinking back like, okay, maybe I should have worn a helmet. Maybe I could have done this better. But you don't think about like, what if I would have never got on the motorcycle in the first place? And then that avoided everything. You know, you sort of like, you can't go back to that moment. So,
for me, that's a waste of time. And I
exactly.
don't want to.
Waste of time, energy, mental energy.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of like the way for someone to develop and thrive is to stop sort of like beating themselves up over things that are irrelevant. You know, it's like, what is relevant now? Like, okay, maybe 10 years ago you liked to play with Barbies, but now you don't like to play with Barbies. So who cares about that? You know, like, what do you like now? What is the thing? Instead of like, people almost find that's what I see is like, sometimes it's like complete opposite. Some people are just evolving all the time and you meet them 1 year later and there's someone completely different, or 5 years later and there's someone completely different. And some people might be like, oh, that's a bad thing. You're not like you used to be, but you're like, hey, wait a minute, you know, like he's at least moving forward in his life. And maybe at that point in time you were a good match, but now you're not. And that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that because people go off however they think they should. And that's what I've also sort of like seen in a way, is that people of all calibers, whether we think they're good or bad or good or evil or great or not great, everyone in a way that's doing something is living their life in the best way possible that they think is right, you know? So we might think like, hey, this guy is corrupt or this guy is evil. But when you think about it, in their minds, they probably don't think they're corrupt and evil. They're just like, this is what I know. And this is how I think is the best way to handle it. In our perspective, it's one thing. But in their perspective, they think everything is great, you know? And that's why it's interesting when you talk to different people and you even see interviews of like mob leaders or ex-drug dealers. They're just like normal people. And then people are like, what do you mean? Why is this guy, like, he seems like a normal guy. But you realize that everyone's a normal guy. You know, like...
And the way you see someone is perhaps different than the way I see someone, right? And that we all have a judgment, well, not a judgment, but we all have a way to seeing things and to processing something. So the way I process my story or what I see is related to my history and my culture and who I am. And so it's for you. So the way we process things and judge people, process people is always different.
And I think that's an important part of like development is like understanding that you're going to change, people are going to change, everything's going to change. And I think this can almost fly into what's happening now, which is not a sci-fi movie, but this global change is that, you know, the past, because we think about it, we're like, things are changing for a way we don't like. But if we look back in history, when World War II was over or any of these wars, the time was different from before the war to after the war, right? And the world didn't stop. It just moved on and people accepted it in the end, and that's it, you know? And it's sort of like right now with this whole global situation, we're being hit with one of those wars in a way, right? We have a global event that's going to change our lives. And it's like, some people are going to try to fight it and be like, oh, I want things like it used to be, you know, or I want this thing like it used to be. But it's like, well, hey, you know, things are not like that anymore, you know, and now you either have to do something about it or you live with it.
And we're talking about the pandemic now, but it could be anything, right?
That's what I'm saying. It could be anything. That's why I didn't really put a name to it.
Yeah, it's just like we always need to change and evolve. It could be like in a family, a death of a person, right? Could be more significant than the pandemic for some other. So whatever it is, and it's called life, right? It's just like shit happen all the time. So be ready to change and be ready to evolve. Everybody's talking about the pandemic that we have to change, but it's life. It's like everything is changing every day and we need to adapt. It's Darwin's law, right? It's just like that's the stronger who's going to survive in the jungle is the one who will be able to adapt. And when I'm looking at this pandemic right now and people are scared of everything, it's life. It's like I was talking with my dad the other day, and my dad is like so cool and so happy. He's in France with his girlfriend. And it's like, you kids have it so easy. You know, when we were at war, we had no internet, we had no TV, we had no food, we had nothing. You guys just have to stay home and chat with each other on internet, you know? So chill. So I'm like, you're actually right, you know? He's like, I was fighting, I was in war, I could have died. I'm like, yeah, it's true, you know? So it's great to see it under a different perspective.
And that's the side of it. Like it goes back to the curiosity or the communicating with people and just talking, is that when people shed different perspectives, it helps you cope with the moment. You know, it gives you more tools to battle with life. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I read one thing, which was, if you don't get what you want, you're getting something better. And this is sort of like one of the things is like, we see it only from one lens, but also sometimes, and this is sort of like when you think back in the past, is like with Yannick, where he got in the accident where a car hit him, right? I was thinking about it. I was like, if he would have left his house 5 seconds later or earlier, that person would have never backed up at that moment, right? Yeah. But then you think about what could have happened. Maybe you get completely hit and then you die instead, right? So like everything happens for that reason. And it's really hard in the
Yeah.
moment to see it, especially in your own life. You know, when you look at other people's lives, like it's very easy to judge it and to make an opinion on it. But when you look at it from your life, you're like, guys, it's not that easy. You know, my problem's bigger than your problem. You don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's like everything is like, it's just life. You know, everything is, I don't want to use it because you say like life is easy in a way, and it is true, but it's also hard in a way. And that's also true. You know, it's both things at the same time. And that's why it's like, you just need the tools to sort of, to deal with it, to battle with it. But how do you get those tools? How do you learn to accept change? You know, like how do you learn to recreate yourself? That's a whole nother thing, because a lot of people, they hit an age and they're like, I'm 50 years old. I don't need to change. You know, like you hear that, I hear that a bunch. Like, I'm 60. I've already lived my life. I don't need to do anything else. Right. Or I'm 70. But then you see other guys that are 70 and they're trying to learn how to kiteboard. Yeah. Yeah. There's some guys that say it's game over, I'm done. And then there's other guys who are like, hey, I'm going to go learn Chinese. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
that's for those people how they keep the life interesting, right? And for me, I see life, and even when shit happens, it's like, all right, I paddled for that wave. It was a great wave. It was a small wave. Now what's going to come next? It's going to be a big wave. And if there's a big wave, I'm going to be ready. You know, it's just like, I'm waiting for what's next. What's next challenge gonna make me excited, because I wanna get over that challenge. Okay, I want a bigger wave. Even if I wipe out, I fail, but I'm excited for the biggest thing. And even if it's something, I don't want to say an accident like what happened to Yannick, but I'm sure after his accident, it's like, what did I learn about myself? And what did I learn of not being able to surf for X amount of months and walking with crutches and whatever? I'm sure he learned something from what happened. And if he did not, maybe he should think about what he did learn, because I'm sure he did. But you know, that's how we should take life. It's like, I'm excited, bring it on. Now I'm gonna learn something because it's gonna get harder. And that's how I see life, you know? It's just like, we want more. And yeah, there's gonna be challenge, but you should take it as something good and as learning. And you might fail, you might get tumbled in that big wave, but then it's just gonna want a bigger and a bigger and bigger. And that's how you're gonna improve, right? That's how you're gonna end up in Puerto Plata surfing like to a 30-foot wave, because you just want more and more and one bigger and one bigger. And it's back to the guy at Amazon who maybe failed 20 times before being able to create Amazon and become rich. You know, now he's riding the biggest wave of his life, and he's having a blast. And he's probably looking for bigger waves out there. Yeah. And he knows that he's gonna maybe crash and get tumbled, but he still wants it. You know, it's just like, just wanted to go more, bring it on. And I'll show you what I have. And if I don't have it, I'm gonna learn to be able to get it.
And that right there is like sort of this, I think it sort of gets into how you sort of progress in life. I think you almost need some sort of basic philosophies and basic values to be able to like deal with it, right? Because every situation is going to be different and unique, but how you attack it, you're sort of using the same principles in a way, right? It's all the same basics. Like a guy that's surfing a small wave and a guy that's surfing a big wave, it's somewhat the same principle, right? So you just need to have the tools to be able to use them in the certain situation that you're encountering. And that's why I almost find is like the guys that are 70 years old and learning how to kiteboard, they're just applying, like they never really changed from when they were maybe 50 years old. Just the challenge changes, but the hunger is still there. You know, they're not like, I'm trying to find the right word of like how they're doing it, but it's, I don't know if it's sort of making sense in a way, but it's just like, I find that the guys that don't give up when they're 70, they have the same attitude maybe from forever. You know, it's not like they really changed. It's just like how they're wired and how they're built. Like maybe you can develop that, over time, but it's like you find that some people are just wired that way, where like they want to do more. They don't mind failing. They don't mind the challenge. They see that challenge is the only way forward in a way. You know, anything they're going to want to do is not going to be easy in the beginning. And even
Yeah.
when it is easy, it's maybe not that fun. It's like you with the kite school. You know, you got to you did it for a chapter in your life, and you're like, now I'm on to a new chapter.
Yeah. I think, looking at those people, and we were taking the comparison of riding a small wave to a big wave.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of what you've learned in life. You know, you're not gonna start riding that big wave being a beginner, but
Yeah.
once you know the skills that you have and that you have developed, like for me, working at the kite school, running the kite school for 16 years, I learned skills. I couldn't have in 2016 open a kite school, buying 100 kites and having 8 instructors. It took me a time to go there.
Yeah.
I learned and I was aware of my skills. I'm like, I know that I can do that because I rode a smaller wave before. So I just got outside of my comfort zone here. That's my comfort zone. I just got here and I got a bigger one and a bigger one, a big one. But I'm aware that I was riding waves before, and I'm just not a freebie riding a wave for the first time and going to Puerto Plata. But I'm also aware, and that's go back to self-awareness, being aware of your skills, either motor skills or mental skills, right? Once you're aware of what you can do, because we all can do a lot of things. Everybody is skilled at something, but a lot of people are not aware that they're good at things. It's like you're good at a lot of things, I'm good at a lot of things, and I use what I'm good at to learn to become better.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm self-aware of what I'm good at. And even if I fail, I realize that I'm still a good kite surfer, so I can push my limits in learning a new sport, winging, because I have those skills. And then I realized the more skills you have, you use them to build bigger skills. And it's just like building bigger and bigger, but just realizing where you started. And if today I'm looking back at in 2020, I'm so grateful today in 2020. Oh, I'm looking back at 2000 and I'm grateful today, 20 years later,
Yeah.
because I have learned so much things.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that. And because of that, I can keep going and stacking on,
So
and
yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
No, because you're saying like it's sort of like that what everyone sort of is familiar with is like just taking one step at a time, right? And building one block at a time. It's like a process, right? So people sometimes I saw you picked up the ukulele, and the first time you picked it up must have been chaos. You know, it's like nothing's going at all. But then over time, it just, the things start flowing, the things start working, but it's a trial and error. But that's the thing, is like you need to take that first step and you need to deal with that initial frustration, especially if you're very good at something else and then you try something like a ukulele and you're like, this is a joke. It's just a small little guitar with a couple of strings. I can't even play a basic note. You're like, what is this? Am I stupid? What's going on? You know? But it's like, it's just like with anything, you know, everything you have to practice and try and develop. But that's a part that a lot of people don't take that first step. You know, they're saying, I might as well stick to what I know so I don't have to deal with that frustration. I don't have to put in that, hit that wall. Like I just want to ease, you know, take it easy.
I call that the fear of failure. You know, like that guy who is 70 and maybe surfed for 50 years in his life, and at 70 he's going to pick up kiting. I mean, how does it feel when you're good at something and it just relates to what you say, and starting from scratch, being a goofy or being a newbie, or not a goofy, a newbie at something when you're 70. But that guy, maybe he's, you know, open to trying new things, find his inner kid again, inner child. And I think that's what allows us, either you 20, 30, 40, 70, to learn new things. Remember how you were playful as a kid and finding that inner joy in learning something. So when I pick up the ukulele, I never played an instrument before. I didn't even know how to hold it, right?
Yeah.
But I had fun. So the fun part is so important in learning new things. How I was playing. If you look at kids, they play, and what's the purpose? They don't want to be world champion in kicking a soccer ball. They want to have fun. They don't even think about that until they're a little older.
So
but I'm talking about,
corrupts them.
Right, I'm talking about young kids. They just want to have fun. And as we grow, we forget the fun parts. We forgot that little child that we were, and having fun, learning something. And it doesn't matter if you're good at, if you suck, if you fail, it doesn't matter. But we kind of forget. And I would say the difference from that 70 years old who's picking up kiting today and that's 30 years old who's looking at kiter and who's like, oh, I love to do that, but I'm too old for that. You know, the difference is like, here my 70 years old has an inner child into him and he's letting it bright shine. And that 30 years old, it's dead. So revive your inner child, you know, be playful. And that's what's going to allow you to learn new things and stay motivated. And it doesn't matter if you fail or not. It's just about having fun.
And that's the, you know, what's funny is that that whole thing that you're saying about playing, that's also a concept that I've been hearing more and more about, is sort of just playing, you know, just having fun with things, trying things out, and just sort of doing things for no real reason in the end. You know, we're always taught like we need a reason for everything we do, which is sort of true, but it's also like sometimes you could just do things, like just doing something because you want to is a good enough reason. You know, you don't need a reason because it's going to have some business result or it's going to have some whatever result. Yeah. It's like you could just do something because you like to do that, or you want to try it out, or you just want to have fun, you know? Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're good or bad at it, you're just trying it out. And that's what a lot of people, they block themselves off too soon. Like the guy you just said was 30 years old. He's like, I'm too old for this. It's like, well, what do you mean? You know, like, why are you too old for that? And sometimes that's the funny part. Like we're walking, when you go outside the country and you walk by a park and you go onto a little slide of a kid, and people could be looking at you like, what the hell is this guy doing on a slide in the park? You know? And you're just like, I'm just having fun. I just want to slide down and the fun thing is that with these small experiences, sort of like what you're saying with the block, they actually build you up to stay flexible mentally, physically, and you don't get all tight and hardened and locked in. You know, you sort of just have this play where someone's like, hey, do you want to come play volleyball? And you're like, I never played volleyball, but I guess I'll try it out. Yeah. And for the guys that are really good, it might be frustrating if you're on their team because they're like, hey, like catch the ball, you know, do something. Yeah. But at least you're there trying and you try your best. And I almost find that these, like, it's like Kai Lenny, if you're talking about sports, you could probably give him any sport and he'll do pretty well at it pretty fast, just because his mindset is not, he's just playing, right? Yeah. So he's almost more fluid and more, you tell him the basics of it and then he's like, okay, that relates to this, that relates to all these different experiences. And then all of a sudden just like clicks in a lot faster for him. And they're like, oh, he's a natural. But it's like, yeah, it's maybe natural for him, but he wasn't always this way probably, you know, but over time of staying flexible, staying open, maybe that's a good word for it. It's like just staying open to different ideas, you know, and not really boxing yourself in or putting the blinders on, like you said, originally, like the horses. And, it's a very important part. It's just having fun with it, with everything. And like you said, even with the kite school, you started it for fun. It sort of flowed naturally in a way. And then it becomes something. And then after a point, maybe you're like, hey, I sort of hit the peak and I need to move on to something else because maybe the initial fun that you got from it was not there anymore. You're like, you just move on. And that's also another thing, is that sometimes people have a hard time moving on. You know, even me, when I was, I really started cleaning up a lot of clutter in my life, and you pick something else that has like 6 inches of dust on it and you're there wiping it off and you're like, I really don't want to throw this away because I think I'm going to use it tomorrow. You're like, you haven't used it in 12 years.
Yeah.
What makes you think you're going to use it tomorrow, you know? And it's just like, you need to get rid of that clutter. You need to be willing to lose one thing to gain another. But a lot of people sort of don't consider that a thing. You know, they're scared to lose anything. You know, the one loss is twice as painful, or I don't know if that makes any sense. Not twice as painful, but it's just like way more painful than even a win. So they rather not lose anything than even the chance of gaining something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then they cannot evolve, right? Because they just have too much accumulation
of the same, you know. And that's also the thing, is that's why I also like the side of like nutrition or lifestyle. It's good to test things out. It's good to hear different opinions. It's good to just see what else is out there, because you can build with that, you know, or you can discard it completely. Maybe you say, I've been there and I tried it out, it doesn't work. And then you move it over. But at least you tried it, you know, and that helps you move in another direction.
That's true. But also what might not work today might not work in 10 years. You know, we are evolving creator. And in a way, it's just like we keep changing, we keep evolving. So maybe you try, I don't know, intermittent fasting 10 years ago and it didn't work. And you're like, no, that doesn't work for me. It's shit. I'm like, well, maybe you change, you evolve, you know more today. So, you know, it's just really that people who are blocked and they have those blinder, they're just like, well, let's try it again. You know, things are different today than they were before.
And that's what you're saying right there is also why, you know, a lot of people, they go to school and they say some of the things I'll never use or like I'll never apply them. But the fact that you did learn it, one day you might be sitting there and someone asks something and then all of a sudden you answer it and you're like, wait, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But it's because it was just there, because you learned it, you know? So you don't want to shut yourself off to like only try to optimize your life, only learning things that you think are going to be beneficial in the future, because then you also block yourself off from all types of experiences that might not benefit you now, but that information maybe helps you later.
Yeah, that's true.
So Absolutely. It's like also that double-edged side to it, but also you don't want to just clutter yourself with everything and anything, because then you might just get completely sidetracked. But it's like finding that balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe with that said, is like, I think I wrote something down about moving, like, with what you know in your life and who you've become. Like, how do you see yourself moving forward, and what would you say are some of the basic guiding principles and values or philosophies that you have that help you move forward?
Well, how I see myself moving forward, it's just keep evolving. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna be into it in 10 years. Yeah. I do have like a 5-year goal, a 1-year goal, you know, for my business. But again, it's evolving. So when I just keep it wide open, I do set myself goal daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. But I really change. I keep the change and the evolving in there, which means in 10 years, I don't know what I'm gonna be. But what I want to stick to is having fun every day, joy, you know. And when I'm talking about joy, it's inner joy. It's not like enjoying a new surfboard that I bought. You know, it's like being happy. It's fun. It is. But let's say I have a scale, right? And my 0 of joy, I want to have it high. And of course, I'm going to have moments where I'm going to be sad, and I'm going to have moments where I'm going to be super excited and happy. But I want to put that scale higher and higher, which means my daily base, I just feel blessed and grateful, and I feel good. No matter if someone bought me a surfboard or not, I'll be like at that level, right? So that's my basic level. I want to build it up just to find that inner peace with myself and that inner joy on a just daily base, knowing that will be up and down. I mean, for everybody, that they like, you have shit day and they're amazing day, but at least the average is just keep building up. So I remember 10 years ago I needed like every day to surf and kite and doing cardio and like do a lot of things to keep my happiness level really high. And my goal is like that if it rains, if there are no waves and no wind, I'm still happy. I don't need some outside thing to keep my joy level really high. So that's my kind of like goal, you know, to find joy on a daily basis without outside excitement and drug. And
life is your drug.
Life is my drug. And I wanted to say something else. I forgot.
You mentioned fun, you mentioned joy. You mentioned that you're sort of fluid like water, that you have your idea of where you want to go, but you know, you deal with life's changes as they come in a way. So you have your ideal in your mind, but you also got to work with what you got. You know, no one planned what's happening now. So people have to adapt.
Yeah. But also what's really important for me is, and we mentioned before, it's knowing myself. And I think that's a life lesson, self-awareness, are learning to control my emotion, my mind, and finding peace with it. Let's say.
So how do you do that though?
Well, let's say resilience. So let's say if I set a goal and I don't achieve it, you know, I'm taking it easy on myself. I'm not gonna beat myself up. I used to be like really hard on myself, really judgmental. What do you say? Judgmental. Yeah. And just taking life more fun. You know, if I can't pronounce a word in English, like fuck it, I don't care. But you know what I mean? Just being easy on myself if I can achieve something, and then just taking life more easy, and maybe also doing less, because the less is more. And for me, whatever I will do in my day, I want to dedicate to be focused on. So I don't want to do like 20 things in a day and multitasking. I maybe want to do 3 things, but really put my mind, my heart into it, and like totally enjoying doing it compared to being all over the place.
So there's 2 things that you said there. So you said you want to take it more easy in your life, but how do you find that balance of taking it easy, doing less, but then also achieving more, right? So let's say when you go to the gym, you're still going to the gym, let's say every day, or you're doing some sort of exercise, but are you, for example, for yourself, like taking note that, okay, today I lifted 5 pounds, or last week I lifted 5 pounds, this week I'm going to lift 7. Are you still holding yourself up to a new standard every time? Or what does that actually mean? Sort of, what does that mean, striking that balance? Like, how do you go about it? And then, so that's one part. Yeah. And the second part is, you said you want to be more, you want to do less and achieve more in a way, like focusing wholeheartedly on, let's say, 3 objectives instead of half-assing 10 objectives. So with that, how do you sort of structure your life on a day-to-day? And has your structure changed from a year ago? So for example, just with that, just to give you an example to see where I'm going with this, is that what I may be doing on a day-to-day changes sometimes, but I always have like a structure around that. So sometimes I just change a slot and put something else there instead. And I'm sort of optimizing myself to be like, for maybe 3 months, I was doing 3 hours a day of exercises, but now maybe I scaled it down to 1 because the 3 hours didn't feel right. So now I'm down to 1, but I'm keeping a structure and keeping like a measurement on myself to be like, all right, like, am I getting everything I want done today? Am I doing better than I did last week, etc.? So maybe to shed some light on that, because
so it's actually a really good question. And it's actually, yes, it's paradoxal. When I say I want to do less to achieve more, the reason I say that is just, let's say I'm going to the gym. I want to be more efficient. So by doing less, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to lift more every week. I still have my calendar. It's like I train 3 times a week, and I have everything. I write everything down, my 3 weeks and then my deload weeks. So I want to be more efficient. So I want to work out maybe 45 minutes compared to before, an hour and a half, but really hit it. I'm going to work hard, but just shorter, and be more efficient, and not losing my time at the gym hanging out and like having a coffee and a drink, and it's going to take me 3 hours till I'm back home. So that's what I was saying. When I do something, I want to have my time. I dedicate 45 minutes, but I'm going to put my entire concentration and trying to make it as efficient as possible. So when I'm working also online creating content, I have a timer. It's like I'm going to work 45 minutes. My phone is off. I'm not going to chat. I'm not going to stand up to go to the fridge. I'm going to work less, but in those 45 minutes, I'm going to be so much more efficient than checking my Facebook and my Instagram at the same time that I'm trying to write content, and it's going to take me 3 hours. So that's how I want to do less. So maybe doing less wasn't the right word. I want to be more efficient. So I want to spend less time, but be more productive in what I'm doing. And it's either at the gym or working out, also preparing my food. So that's how I see it. And then talking about the future, how I set up my day, I do the same. I mean, here I have my whiteboard. I don't know if you see it, right? So when I wake up in the morning, I have my 30-minute meditation. It's written down. 30-minute meditation, breathing exercise, and then 3 things. Today I'm grateful for what? 3 things. I'm grateful for that, and that. And then I have 3 things to do today, no matter what. 3 things, not 15. And of course, making your bed and washing your hands is not in those 3 things. But 3 things I really want to do today, and it's written down on my boards. And then I also have things to practice. So I have my ukulele and my breathing. So anyway, so that's how I still set my goals. So again, here, I want to be efficient. So I do less tasks in my day. I have 3. And then if it's done, fine. I still can check my Facebook and my Instagram. But at least my most important task are done early in the day. 1, 2, 3, done. Then in the evening I can have a glass of wine and celebrate my win because I marked it off, and it's not like a push until next week. So that's how I want to do less, but I still gonna create more in my life, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
And no, because it's also a thing that I've realized that a lot of people find that they think that when you set up a schedule for yourself, let's say, that you're restricting yourself, but there's actually a lot of freedom in it. Because now you're operating how you want to operate instead of sort of on the whim of other people's time and other factors. You're when you control your day, you actually have more freedom in your day.
Yeah.
Than people might imagine. People are like, why are you going training all the time at this time, or waking up at this time, or going to sleep on this time? But they don't see that in that is actually freedom, because then you actually get to do what you want to do. When you go to bed whenever and you wake up whenever, your life is almost chaos in a way.
Yeah, it's so true. And also you make sure that whatever you put your priority on, it's done. So it's like in my calendar, believe it or not, but I do put my workouts in my calendar, and then I train other people around that. I put my surfing time in the morning in my calendar, my wind sport in the afternoon in my calendar, because that's what get me going. If I don't have that, I'm maybe not as happy. So those are my priority. And then I make sure I have my nap and I have my food. So those are my priority. And then the rest is like a work around. Yeah. So I like to have a calendar and to write things down, just because I make priority on things which are important for me. And then once I get that, I can play around with the rest.
And you said that you do a nap. You do a nap every day?
Yeah.
Of how long? 15
Uh,
minutes? Or is it a long nap?
no, actually, sometimes I do 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
okay. Because I was also messing around with that for a while of doing like a nap in the midday of 15 minutes. And yeah, like,
But for me, my nap, it depends of my activity of the day. Let's say a regular day, I would surf and then I would train in the afternoon. So self-recover is really important for me. So I make sure that if I do all that, I have a nap between. And then I listen to my body. If one afternoon I'm like totally tired, I'm gonna take a break, because otherwise if you keep pushing, keep pushing yourself either at the gym or in the water or your activities, whichever the one you do, at one time you're gonna get injured. And I learned the bad way. I'm the one who would just keep pushing until I'm laying in bed because I have fever and my body is like so exhausted that it just crashed. I had so many crash. So this is something I'm still dealing with, I'm still learning. And I know that if I push myself too much, I crash. So I'm aware of that. So that's why I'm really aware of my nutrition, that I eat enough calories and that I sleep enough, because it works for me. It might not work for everybody, and it works for my lifestyle. So this is the reason it's my priority.
no, and it's, I think like what you're doing is because you've basically been more in tune with your body and learned your body more. Though the other side of that is that sometimes when you tell people you got to listen to your body, a lot of people's, let's say their pain scale or their struggling scale is very low.
Yeah.
So they'll go running for 1 minute. They're like, oh, this hurts. And they're like, I think I'm listening to my body, guys. I'm going to take it easy today. You're like, hey, you went running for 1 minute, you know? No, really, it's really done, guys. And they're not pushing themselves. So it's like, also, that's the hard thing. It's like, it's good that you maybe, well, you went to the next extreme where you pushed yourself so far where you got hurt, but at least you figured out what your max is. Because your body broke down, let's say, right? Or you injured yourself. But a lot of people, they don't push themselves even 1/5 of that, you know, or even 1/10 of that. So that's maybe a hard thing for people to figure out, is like, how much should I actually push myself? And a lot of people also have these ideas in their head, like we like even numbers. Oh, I'm going to do 10 reps, or I'm going to do 20 reps, you know, and there's like, just because it sounds good. There's no real reason behind it, you know?
Yeah.
There's like, oh, I did 25, 25, 25, 25, and it's 100. So perfect.
Yeah.
But it's
I always say your 3 last session or 3 last repetition at the gym should be the hardest. So if you did 15 rep and you still have 50% in your tank, it means you either need to add more rep or more weight. Exactly. But talking about, there are people, it's again, it depends how people know themselves, right? That guy who's going to be on the sofa and watching Netflix the full day, and it's like, I need to listen to my body, you know? So it's just like, everybody's different, and there's again a self-awareness. But you were asking me that question in written, and we didn't talk about that. This is when you need a coach. This is when you need someone who knows you and who know your limits, your goal, and how either you need to push yourself and to slow you down. So I have a friend who helped me coaching me at the gym so I don't get injured. I push my limits, and he tells me to pace down when it's time to pace down, because he knows me. And I have a business coach, which also helped me. So this is important. It's like, today you cannot by yourself go up on the top. You need a team of people around you, and that's how you go really gonna build and become better. Because people either gonna tell you, move your fucking ass, you know, get off the couch because you 400 pounds and you need to move. Or someone's gonna tell you, you need to nap, you need to have a massage, you need to recover today. There's no time on the water unless you're gonna get hurt. So that's when someone from the outside, and not your dad or your mom or your brother, because there shouldn't be any, I don't want to say there shouldn't be any feeling, but it should be someone who knows you well. Because, you know, a mom would like hit you on the shoulder. Yeah. And like, oh, my little one, take some time. You just work too much. the goal is efficiency. What are we trying to reach? You know, it's not a mom who wants to see the son happy. It's like, what are we trying to reach? So that's the reason that a coach is so important, because it's going to help you going to the next limits. It's like everybody knows that eating green salad is going to be good for, it's going to help you losing, I'm not losing weight, but eating green is better than eating fried chicken. Yeah. But there's a way the coach should explain when to eat the the greens, and when to eat the fried chicken, and the reason to do that.
No, and that's it's a good sort of segue what you did there, with the sense of like people that want to push themselves. You know, I find that for myself, I was maybe in a peculiar situation, and I think when I do look back, that there has been a couple moments where people have maybe said something that clicked something in my head, or someone took maybe a little bit more time with me, and that sort of like helped me in one way or another. Something in my body and my brain like clicked in, where it's like, hey, you can maybe do more, or it shifted me towards one side rather than another. And sometimes you need people to be there for yourself. And I think like what you're saying is that having a coach or a mentor, or whatever word you want to put with it, you did say that it's better if it's not a family member or a friend, which is true, because sometimes people have a hard time differentiating the relationships, you know, like they blanket that relationship. We're like, Dad, why are you treating me this way? And he's like, I'm still your father, but you need to hear this. And if you're not going to hear it from anybody else, I'm the one who's going to tell you, you know. But it is hard for people to have that. So sometimes it's good to have that outside support, and that outside feedback and insights and knowledge to progress, because there's only so much you can do by yourself, you know. And it's even like you said that you're using a video camera to watch yourself. That's basically like having a coach. Yeah. That's watching you, seeing what you're doing. And then he's like, hey, do this, do that, do that. But also I find that sometimes people, they block themselves in the sense that they are like, what do you know? How do you know more than me? You know? So they lock themselves off, instead of like sort of having a little bit of faith and a little bit of trust in the process of like, hey, wait a minute, maybe the guy is saying something that's right, or that girl is saying something that's true. And maybe I should try it out, you know, and listen. But sometimes it's like, I think it all comes back to the person has to be ready for change, or want change in their life. And then they're going to be open to like the guy saying, hey, maybe turn your body a little bit more, or hey, don't eat that tonight, you know. And just raising those questions to you, or bringing up that new information. And that's the thing, is like, I think you can do, because you answered it, you know, you said it, like you do need a coach, because you can only do so much by yourself. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, but you need to get that first step. And now that's the question. How do you get to that first step of wanting change? You know, I think you need maybe that life moment to be like, something sort of slaps you, or, you know, you come up with some sort of realization after some sort of event of being like, maybe I could do more, or maybe I should be more, or maybe whatever it is, you know, or maybe this is not the right way. And then you become open to these ideas, and you become curious. I think that's also the thing. It's like those things come into play, like being playful, being curious. I think that's the childlike features. You know, you just, why are you reading about that guy? Well, let me just see. And if nothing comes from it, then you move on. You go to the next thing, you know, and then that's it. Yeah. But with that being said, then I think it would be good to know, like, how do you see things moving forward? Just to wrap it all up, is like, how do you see things moving forward this year and the next year on the individual levels? Do you see any sort of trends coming about? Like, do you see that more people are trying to better themselves? Do you see some sort of shifts in the world, or is it sort of like, let's see how things go? Like, what do you think?
I think I'm actually pretty happy about and excited about how the world is gonna be, and how people are shifting, because there's definitely an awareness going on. People realize that they have to change, and is growing happen in everyone. So people realize that we have to evolve and to change, because now with the pandemic, there's no other way. If you don't change, you don't survive, right? And people realize that. So I'm really excited about the future, about what's going to happen, the new job, which we're going to see, because it's going to be way different way people are going to work, healthcare. The world is evolving for better, yes, I believe better. So that's my word, right? Maybe someone's going to say, yo, you're kidding. But I believe that we're evolving for a better world, because there's a change, and change is good no matter what it is. People are changing and evolving. And even here in Cabarete, you know, people talk, well, there's no tourists, but yes, it's true. It's not great what's happening now, but I'm excited about the future, because it's going to bring, we're going to have a lot of people coming back. People are changing the way they're working. People are getting more connected with each other, because I'm calling my dad on a weekly basis. He's in France. Before, I would call him once a month. So I'm connecting more with people who are really important to me. And I think it's happening everywhere in the world. So there's a change. You know, people are more helping each other. Let's say your neighbor doesn't have food, you're going to help him because, you know, it's a hard time. So there is a positive change, and I see a lot of good things happening in the future. And to everyone right now, either on a personal level or on a worldwide level. And you see it sometimes, you know, it's after war that you see the big business growing, that you see people, big evolution happening. It's just like you say, when shit happen, when something goes sad or bad, then everyone's moving forward. And it's like, we need to change, we need to evolve, we need to grow. And I think this is going to happen. And I believe it's going to happen. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
No, it's good. And it's a good insight. And I think one thing to maybe add to that is that people will, like, there will be some people that will be thriving and developing themselves throughout these tougher times. Though, you know, some people, sometimes they feel like, society is leaving me behind. You know, like my business went to shit, or my whole family's ruined. And they sort of play like a victim card on themselves, instead of maybe being like, if I want the world to get better, I might also have to get better.
Yeah.
And sort of like taking on the burden as a challenge to themselves of being like, hey, things are tough. Things are not how they used to be, but where can we go from here? And how can I be a valuable member, whether in my community, in the world, or even just to an individual, in the individual's perspective. And I think that's also the mind shift that I hope comes to be about. There's for sure going to be a lot of, there's always a lot of people, you know, we never want to see, let's say, the quote unquote losers or someone losing. You know, we don't like to see that. But sometimes the people only lose because they let themselves lose, right? They gave up.
Yeah.
And you can't drag someone across the finish line. You know, like it might work once or twice, and that might work here and there, but that's not a sustainable way. Yeah. You can't be dragging him every race across the whole thing. You got to like, hey man, you're gonna have to crawl, you have to do something, but you can't just do nothing and then cry about it if no one helps you. You know, like we're all in this at some level, but we're all in the race. You know, no one's above the race.
And, you know, no matter what happened in life and what the future is going to happen, there will always be negative people and people who are going to feel it happened to them, everything wrong happened to them, no matter what. And this is something you can change. You know, I think what really helps people is positivity and staying positive. It's really going to help everyone to evolve. And no matter all the negativity in the world, right now there's a change, and people who stay positive and going with that change gonna feel good and evolve. And again, there's always gonna be people complaining, people negative, and people who feel as a victim. No matter what, it always happens. We don't need a pandemic, and you know, you've seen it. We don't need a pandemic for that.
Yeah.
And those people, for me, I leave them alone. You
Yeah.
know, this is also something that's really important to me. I kind of like make sure I have a good circle of friends which have like a really positive mind and want to go forward than just being negative all the time. So, and this will always happen no matter what. So you just want to choose with who you want to stick and grow your team. Grow either your winning team or your drowning team.
No, and that's why, like, there's so many, you know, like, life is simple in a way, but there's so many simple rules to maybe learn that it could definitely, like, because that's a whole nother conversation of its own, right? Like how the environment, your social, your friends, everything influences you. Even how your house is, how you keep your bedroom, if it's just a bedroom, right? If your bedroom's a mess, your mind might become a mess just because of that. And that's a whole nother thing. Though, like you said, no matter what, we're always going to have positive and negative people. And how I see it, through any sort of challenge that you might encounter in your life, that sort of makes the story juicier. You know, that makes everything better, because the most interesting people you meet, usually the only reason why they're interesting is because they went through some hardships. You know, they had something that happened where, against all odds, they managed to push forward and push through. Yeah. And then they are where they are today. You're like, let's say your dad's like, hey, I was in war, you know, and I'm still here. So that just makes it that much better. You know, it's not like, that's why, and everything is possible. And when you talk to more people, when you have these sort of conversations, you realize, like, you're not the only one. You know, there's all types of challenges and all types of different levels, but the challenge is always there. And you just have to play your game, and you have to, sort of the key word there, you just have to play. And when you play, you have fun, and you go, that's it, you know.
Here we go. Absolutely.
I don't know if there's anything that you would want to plug or say that to wrap it up, but I think it's been definitely, like, interesting overall.
Yeah, I think we pretty much, I mean, we could talk about hours, right?
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's why we definitely. But
looks like the wind is kicking in, so I want to make sure I get my food and then probably go kiting this afternoon. So, but no, that's, I think we mentioned a lot of great things, a lot of great takeaway. So I hope we can inspire people listening and motivate them in a way.
No, exactly. And you never know. It's always that one sentence or that one little moment that could sometimes have an impact, right? And sometimes some people might listen to something or watch something and nothing happens. And for someone else, it's life-changing. But it's always good to be exposed to different experiences and different ideas, because that's how you sort of develop your creativity, right? And that's how you define yourself a little bit further. And I don't think we said your full name. So this is Audrey Meyer.
Audrey Meyer.
Meyer. Meyer. And you have a website, right?
Yeah, AudreyMeyerCoaching.com.
All right. So there you go. And then all the social medias under that name.
Yeah, everything is there. Audrey Waterwoman on Instagram. And and you find everything on my website, AudreyMeyerCoaching.com. And my other website is called BlossomFitLife.com. But both websites are actually connected. So the Blossom Fit Life, it's more fitness coaching and nutrition coaching. And AudreyMeyerCoaching.com, it's more the mindset and more the overall coaching, mostly mindset.
Yeah. No, mindset is everything in the end, right? Because that's where everything happens. And it's important to have a good mindset, because you could be the most healthy person in the world, but if you have a negative mindset or a bad mindset, like, forget it. You know, it's
not going to work long.
It's not going to work long. So with that being said, though, you know, like, I don't have to tell it to you, but keep doing what you're doing, because you're just pushing forward in your own life, you know, so that's good to see. And even this is like, because I remember, I still remember on Kite Beach, me getting in trouble, like, yo, hey, who's this little guy causing wreckage in the ocean, you know, yelling and jumping.
Yeah, I remember that time too.
Yeah, breaking all the rules. But here we are now, and it's just good to see people evolving and going further and sort of like making it happen for themselves. You know, that's always an awesome thing to see people evolve and develop, because who you were 20 years ago is different than who you are today. And it's just interesting to see it.
For sure. And you want to, again, as I say, you want to keep evolving, right? That's the key.
You're living proof of it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But all right, so we'll end it here. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. And I'll let you know when everything is posted, and we go from there. And hopefully one day, very soon, we'll both be on the wings again.
Yes, absolutely.
It's going to be good.
Cool. No, Charles, thank you for your time. It's been great. It's been fun. I learned a lot as well. Sharing experience is always fun. Sharing great ideas is always involved. Yeah, it's always a good thing. So thanks for your time.
Yeah.
And maybe I see you on the water this afternoon.
Maybe. I have to go coaching, but I will try to get out there. I need to get some sunlight. That's for sure. That's another key. It's an important key, getting some sunlight every day.
Sunlight. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, all right, Charles, you have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye. Hey guys, if you got to this part, then you finished watching or listening to the whole audio between Audrey and myself. Hope you learned a lot, and you're going to see a lot more conversations coming out throughout the next days and weeks with various different individuals from all walks of life. And hopefully these conversations and these talks bring some sort of value or perspective or information and knowledge that you prior didn't have or know of or think of, and that it can have a positive impact on your life. So hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more. Bye.